Hello and welcome back to the Super Freak podcast. Today's a fun topic. It's something that my clients bring up when they are feeling a little bit insecure, sometimes in session with me. And the question is, am I like the most difficult client you've ever had? And the answer is no, the most difficult client I've ever had is myself. But the question really is, am I uncoachable? And I want to talk to it from a couple of different angles today. The concept of being uncoachable, because a lot of people make assumptions that their clients are uncoachable or they are uncoachable. And I want to talk about what uncoachable means and really how far away we are from it, because I have some pretty strong opinions about this. And I think that 9 times out of 10, you can avoid the situation where you are working with an uncoachable person right from the get-go. So if you're a coach, this is about how you enroll people and how you can spot the right people and how you can support people to remain coachable throughout your programs. And if you're a client, this is about being able to recognize, be really kind to yourself, where there's a difference between being uncoachable and being sort of in resistance to the transformation. So let's define the difference first before we go into uncoachable. Sometimes it's not a case that someone is actually uncoachable or you as a client are not coachable. Sometimes it's a case that we are just not ready. Now, I would never say to a client, you're not ready. I don't think a coach should really ever say that, because we can't dictate where someone is at on their journey. I would never say that. But sometimes it's a case of we're just in resistance, or your client is in resistance to the transformation. And it can appear uncoachable on the outside. And sometimes as coaches, we start to feel insecure or we start to feel worried. We make it about us. But when you can keep your focus on your client, sometimes someone who appears uncoachable on the surface is actually just deeply scared, or they're burnt out, or they're really overwhelmed. And if safety and trust are built over time, those patterns can shift dramatically and a person can have the biggest breakthrough of their life. And so you as the coach needs to be able to identify the difference between someone who's truly uncoachable versus someone who is just in resistance or not ready for whatever reason they are not ready. So let's talk about that. But before we do, I really need to let you know that the key to turning someone from not ready or in resistance to absolutely coachable, the difference to help them get out of that pattern of being scared or burnt out or overwhelmed, is rapport. And with rapport, you can say almost anything. Without rapport, you can give someone the greatest coaching of their life and it will not land and they will come across as uncoachable. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a checklist. I'm going to talk about the traits or the patterns that will show you the difference between someone who is truly uncoachable, aka defensive, versus someone who is perhaps not ready yet or in resistance, aka protective. Now, it's pretty rare to actually meet someone who is truly uncoachable, absolutely uncoachable. I believe that a lot of people who present as uncoachable, there's just a lack of rapport in the situation. But I have seen it before. And the main circumstances where someone is truly uncoachable is usually when, I'll be honest, it's a dynamic where the client didn't actually choose the coaching. So for example, this is really common in corporate programs or school-based coaching or family paid coaching, where someone else is putting a person in a situation because there's no ownership, there's no buy-in, there's no skin in the game. The client just sees the coaching as some kind of obligation or even some kind of punishment. So they risk showing up really disengaged or resistant because they're just there to kind of appease someone else. Now, the antidote to doing this is by, once again, rapport. Begin co-creating the relevance and by asking it, what would make this time feel worthwhile for you? So as the coach, letting the client know that even though someone else has paid for the experience, placing the container around them and making sure that they know that the experience is for them and their privacy is contained in that circumstance and they are genuinely there to receive help from you to get the best that they want, which as a corporate coach, if a company is actually paying for you to coach their clients, you then need to balance the power dynamics of having someone requesting that this person achieves a certain result while also managing the fact that you are there to actually serve the client and support them to get the best out of themselves. So another reason why people can be uncoachable is that the power dynamics can be a little bit murky. They might not feel safe to be honest. For example, when you're coaching kids or teens or junior employees or coaching within a family business, the client might not feel safe to be honest, or they might be afraid that what they share will be reported. And these are just walls people can put up to shut down. They end up performing for you, or they just default to compliance, not to actual transformation for themselves. The antidote to this is really explicitly set confidentiality agreements and psychological safety norms, making it clear, once again, this is your space. What we talk about stays here unless we agree otherwise, and setting that up really clearly in your agreements with, say, the corporation, with HR, and with a client as well. So if there is a third party who's actually paying for this is usually what happens that makes the power dynamic murky. If there's a third party paying for the coaching, then you have to make sure that both sides understand the confidentiality before you get started. Thirdly, it can be that they're there to fix a problem that someone else named. Again, this is really common when someone else is, it's in corporate or in a family or it's parents. The coaching is referred by HR or by school staff or by parents, and the client just feels like they are othered, like they haven't claimed that this issue is theirs. They're just defending themselves against it. You risk them becoming the extension of a system that's kind of pathologizing them. And what you can do is actually explore that person's perspective. So there's a story going around about you want to tell me yours, like you want to tell me your side of what's going on. And once again, this is building rapport, this is building confidentiality, this is building safety and trust within the coaching environment. And sometimes that takes time to do. Again, it can also be because they have no skin in the game. Once again, it's if they've got fully paid coaching, especially with no expectations or boundaries from someone else. When they don't invest their own time and energy or money, the commitment often really drops. They can ghost sessions, they don't prepare, they don't follow through. And again, the antidote, clear expectations and outcomes from the start. This is a partnership. I'm here 100% when you are. Are you in? This is really common when someone is, say, and this is going to sound really funny, but this is why coaching is an investment, and it needs to be an investment. So when you're working as a coach with people who are high net worth individuals, people who are used to having a team around them that always says yes, oftentimes your price doesn't mean they really have skin in the game. And you don't always have to charge an exorbitant price for coaching, but it needs to be a relevant price that has someone pay attention to know that it's an investment of their time. Or you have to have them doing specific tasks so you can have leverage, and then therefore they have skin in the game. So an example of this is when I worked with a coaching client many years ago who was older than me, who was a higher grade in my karate club, which meant, the power dynamic was already off. And he wanted to quit smoking, and he couldn't even do quitting smoking for his family. He couldn't do it for his sport. Like, he just wasn't able to find that really, really deep reason why he should actually quit, but he knew he needed to quit. It wasn't just about the money. It was about making sure that he had skin in the game in terms of tasks. So as the coach, I gave him all these tasks that he needed to do before we would even begin the coaching, and he had to pay me, then do the tasks. And if he didn't do the tasks, I didn't coach him. And that was my way of bringing back the buy-in for him. And of course, I gave him the time and the space and the patience and the presence to be able to do that. But making sure that someone has skin in the game means they actually turn into someone who is coachable. So again, all these examples of someone being technically uncoachable, there are antidotes to them as well. The final one I would say is if they're too young developmentally for coaching. This can be really common in kids under the age of, say, 12 to 13, or neurodivergent clients without a very tailored approach or specific training. And it's because coaching does rely on a metacognition and self-directed insight, and that's not always available. So sometimes we risk trying to coach someone who literally can't process in that way. The antidote to it, though, is shifting to mentoring and modeling and playful inquiry, or coach the ecosystem, which might be the parent or the teacher instead. There's still a solution. So the bottom line is, if they didn't choose the coaching, your first job is to help them choose it. Help them get buy-in, help them get skin in the game, help them build trust, rapport, and confidence in the confidentiality of the circumstances so they do actually feel safe to go there with you. The transformation cannot happen without that rapport. You're not just coaching them, you're also coaching the system that brought them to you, if that's the case. Okay, so the key insight here is that for the most part, people are not uncoachable. There are some circumstances, yes, but even when someone is presenting as uncoachable, it's often just a signal or a little flag that says, hey, we need to build some more rapport, we need to build some more trust. And that's the coach's job. It's not there to have a perfect experience all the time. You can actually create a life-changing experience for someone who's presenting as uncoachable by simply being there with them and building trust so that they can have the transformation themselves. So the key insight is the uncoachable person resists the relationship. The not yet person, or the person in resistance, they're not quite ready yet. They resist the transformation, but they still want it. And quite often you will find that you have coaching clients who put themselves in a circumstance with you and they do really want the result, but they are resisting what it takes. And so your job as the coach is to hold space for them for as long as it takes until they are no longer resisting the actual transformation, and to dig deeper into why they might be doing that. So let's just clarify for a second. What's the difference between uncoachable versus just in resistance and resisting the transformation? There are a couple of traits and patterns that I want to share with you that you can recognize. So you can see the difference between someone who's truly uncoachable versus they're just quite, they're resisting that transformation. They're not quite ready yet, but not ready yet doesn't mean they might not be ready next week. Okay. So the first trait is responding to feedback. A truly uncoachable person will be dismissive, they'll be consistently defensive or argumentative, and they will push back constantly. But someone who's in resistance, who's not ready yet, they will be hesitant. They might even be teary or they might be anxious, but they're open to exploring it over time. They might even be a little bit pushback, a little bit defensive, a little bit argumentative, but they're still open to exploring it over time. There's no wall up. There are just kind of blockades. You can sort of feel it. The next trait or pattern is in someone's language. So someone is truly uncoachable. They'll say things like, you don't get it, it's not my fault, really blame heavy language. Versus someone who is not quite ready yet for the transformation, but they want it, they're in it, they're just resisting it for now, is they're more protective or uncertain. So they might be like, I don't know where to start. I want to, but I feel stuck. This keeps happening. They're really talking about the process as opposed to closed off language, which is like, this is it. You don't get it. This is not working. The next trait or pattern is in their emotional range. So someone who's truly uncoachable will be flat, they'll be closed, or they'll be performative. There'll be little to no actual genuine emotion. When they're not ready yet, the emotion could be either suppressed or really intense. So I want to just pause here and talk about this. Not ready yet, suppressed emotion can look like performative. It can look like flat, but you can feel that there's actually something there. And with the combination of all the other patterns, like they're responsive and their language, response to feedback and language, it sort of indicates that there's actually something suppressed in there. It's not just completely closed off. You can get little glimmers that there's something in there. If the emotion is intense, once again, it could be intense anger, intense frustration, which can come across as a bit defensive or argumentative. It's just intense. But what's happening is they're often emotional, but they're really trying to stay in control. They're actually trying to resist the reality of what's going on underneath. The difference between this and truly uncoachable is they're just completely closed off. Like you just get nothing. And in most cases, it's a case of it's suppressed or intense. It's not completely closed off. Okay, I hope you can see the difference here. The next trait is someone's energy inside of a session. When someone is completely uncoachable, there's an energetic wall and they're just resigned or they're completely performative, and it is literally like getting blood out of a stone over and over and over and over again. When they're not ready yet, they're present, but they might be a little bit scattered, or they might be feeling a little bit fragile, or they might be overwhelmed. There's like a softness beneath that surface. And also, energy in sessions can be just out there, wow, like so excited about what we're working on. But when someone's not quite ready yet, they might just feel that little bit scattered or fragile. And this is where clients end up going, am I your worst client ever? I feel like I should be more organized. I should be feeling really ready and excited and energetic and all of that in this session. And absolutely not. That is not how coaching is supposed to be. As a client, you can and should feel welcome and safe to show up exactly as you are. Now, I know that when I say should, you're not doing it wrong if you're not feeling 100% comfortable. But I want to reiterate, if you're the type of person who's like, oh my gosh, am I your most difficult client to your coach? You're probably not. You're probably just in a phase where there's transformation, it's available, and you're figuring it out. That's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean you're uncoachable. That means you're in the process and you're doing it right. The next trait or pattern is in a client's level of ownership. So an uncoachable person just takes absolutely no responsibility. Excuses are habitual. They just avoid. Whereas when someone is not ready yet, they do want to take ownership, but they often just fear the consequences or the impact of change. And so again, it feels more process driven as opposed to, even though it's not necessarily super positive and exciting and energetic, as opposed to being totally uncoachable, just shut down. Excuses at an all-time high, absolute zero responsibility. Okay, the next trait is relational willingness. In other words, how willing are they to, be in this relationship with you? Because remember, the key insight is that the uncoachable person resists the relationship altogether. The not yet person just resists the transformation. They're not resisting the relationship. So a truly uncoachable person will see the coach as the problem, or they'll stay in a power struggle constantly. Whereas someone who's not ready yet, they can be frustrated at the coach. They can be frustrated at the situation, but they respect the relationship, even though they might be a little bit afraid of vulnerability. They still want that connection. So while there might be sometimes even getting in and out of rapport, a little bit of rupture there, they still want connection. They still want repair. They're showing signs and signals that they are willing to be in that relationship with the coach. And that's a really good sign that someone is actually in the process. See, sometimes when you get into coaching with people, they're ready in the sense that they're ready to look at the transformation, but they're not ready in the sense that they're ready to take action and completely move through it all. And sometimes your job as a coach is to help someone go from I'm in the environment, I'm at the table, I'm having the conversation, even though I'm scared of this transformation. And your job is to take them from not ready to ready. And then they go from ready to exceptional and moving through things and actually taking all of the actions. And that's part of our job as coaches. It doesn't mean someone is uncoachable. The final trait or pattern is recognizing a pattern in a person. It's just pattern recognition for themselves. So a truly uncoachable person will avoid the insight or twist the insight into all the reasons why they can't change, versus someone who's just not quite ready for the transformation can reflect, but they get emotionally flooded or they get frozen. Now, again, I just want to clarify that sometimes folks who are not ready yet can find all of the reasons why they can't change, but this is them being emotionally flooded or frozen. It's not like truly uncoachable is like walls down, that's it, absolutely, like you're getting nothing. So it's not that part of these traits or patterns, you can't just pick one out and be like, well, that means a person is completely uncoachable. I want you to see it as an ecosystem of traits or patterns. Someone who is truly uncoachable will pretty much display all of these patterns, not just one of them. And so if you are someone who you're like, and is this me? And you're seeing maybe one of the uncoachable traits or two, it doesn't mean you're uncoachable. It probably means you're just not ready yet and you're flooding yourself with anxiety, or you're feeling protective, or you're feeling really uncertain, or your emotions are intense. These are all signs that you're not ready yet. So I'm going to go with 99% of the time people are in the not ready category, not truly uncoachable. And sometimes it's a case of a person is truly uncoachable when they're just working with the wrong person, or they don't have skin in the game, for example. It's not necessarily that they're uncoachable 100% of the time. They're never going to be coachable. That's a pretty rare occurrence. I've never met someone who's like that. So let's just have a little chat now about what you can do with someone who's not ready yet. Because remember, the uncoachable person resists the relationship. That means they might just need to be with a different coach. The client who's just not quite there yet is resisting the transformation, not the relationship. And so sometimes the magic really is just being in that relationship with someone who reminds you consistently that you can do this and it's safe for you to take the tiniest step forward and keep dreaming. And that can be the difference that makes the difference over time. No one can ever really make promises within a certain amount of time to say you will achieve X within Y. Well, sometimes in a case of mentoring, I guess, but really the transformation has to happen at someone's own pace. So what can you do as a coach with someone who is in that space of, I'm not quite ready yet, but I'm here. I'm resisting the transformation. I don't want to use the words not ready actually, because it makes it sound final. Not ready in this moment, resisting the transformation in this moment. What can you do? The first thing is offer safety and space, not pressure. So rather than saying, well, you should be here, or you should be doing this, or why haven't you done it? Offer safety and space, meaning build rapport and build relationship and build trust that helps them know where you are at is perfectly okay. The next thing you can do is reflect what you're seeing without attachment. And this is another way you can do it without pressure, is without attachment as the coach, needing them to do something, needing them to get a result within a certain amount of time. Most of the time, what's happening in these dynamics is a coach is working with someone for X amount of time. And then they start feeling like if they don't get the result within X amount of time, which is based on so many factors, the coach starts to feel insecure about themselves. So then they put pressure on the client to do something faster, but the client is going through their own process. So it's really important as a coach to not make a client's process about your results or your ability as a coach. This is why we self-reflect as coaches. This is why we get supervision as coaches, but it's really important. So this tip is about reflecting what you see without having any attachment to them doing something with it. So something like, I can feel that there's a lot here that you're experiencing, or I'm noticing that when we have this conversation, this is what's coming up. And that makes so much sense. Would you like to explore it? Just reflecting what you see, reflecting the pattern, reflecting maybe what you feel for them, and acknowledging them and affirming them that it makes so much sense and it's okay. Because a lot of the time when a client is in a situation like this, they start feeling like they're not a good enough client, or they're not doing it right, or there's something wrong with them, or they're never going to make it because they're not making it right now. And it's really important to neutralize that. The next tip is to just give really tiny invitations and not request leaps of someone. So when someone is resisting the transformation, there's often like a negative consequence that they're imagining happening if the transformation is there. It could be that there's a benefit to staying where they are, even though they know they want the change. So the key is to just invite them to make really tiny little micro moves. Like, what's a micro move? And what I tell my clients is like, we're going to trick ourselves and you're going to trick yourself into taking actions so tiny that you don't even realize you're transforming. And then when you look back, you realize that you got the result. And it's such a good little tip, because micro moves always feel doable, even when you're in fear, even when you're in overwhelm. In fact, it's a key to getting out of overwhelm. So tiny invitations, not leaps. And finally, what to do with someone who is in that resisting of the transformation is hold and honor their pace, but hold a strong, loving container. So you have to stay coachable to the process as well. And this is what I mean by not getting caught up in making it mean something about you. Honor their pace. Remind them that their pace is perfect, because they're going to do it at their own pace no matter what. And just keep holding that loving container to remind them that it's safe to take the next step, and it's also safe to be exactly where they are. So that's what to do if someone is actually, not ready yet. But the thing is, at the end of the day, keeping rapport is key. So if you keep rapport, you can make reflections without any attachment. If you keep rapport, you're going to offer that safety and space. If you keep rapport, you'll be able to offer the tiny invitations, and your client's most likely to actually take them. And keeping rapport means that you are able to honor someone's pace. So just to recap on all of this, for the most part, you are not uncoachable. You are not your coach's worst client ever. Your coach's worst client and hardest, most difficult client is themselves, I promise you. And if you're a coach, please don't make assumptions straight off the bat that your client who is in resistance to the transformation is uncoachable. 99% of the time, it is just that they are resisting the process, even if they're really in it. And if you can hold space for that and not make that about you or about them, you have the opportunity to create one of the most life-changing experiences for people, because you might be the very first person who's ever just sat with them and made everything they do okay, and then encourage them to take the next right step. Sometimes that is literally all it takes. Remember that you need to build rapport in order to do this as well. So I want to touch on really quickly though, if you are a coach, what to do when someone is completely uncoachable, like actually what to do. And then we'll finish up. So the main key is to get really, really curious with people. Slow right down, pause your coaching, decide to have a conversation about the coaching itself, as opposed to diving into what the situation involves. Now, I could probably do an entire other podcast on how to avoid signing up the wrong clients. But for now, we're going to assume that this person is the right client. They've actually gone through a process with you. They have signed up to do coaching with you because they felt something, there's a chemistry, or you've been chosen by HR or a parent or a school or someone. You're actually in the situation and you're in it right now. What you can do when someone is displaying signals of being uncoachable is start by slowing down and getting really curious, like I said. So you can just name the pattern really gently without making them wrong. And you can ask certain questions that sort of begin to re-enroll someone back in the process. You reflect what you're noticing and use really neutral language. So it plants a seed, which sometimes can bloom a little bit later. So you can try saying something like this. Hey, I'm noticing a pattern of resistance every time we get close to something quite meaningful. Would it feel okay to explore what's underneath that? If the answer is no, there's your clarity. If the answer is yes, it's a signal that they're not uncoachable. They're actually just feeling a little bit out of rapport or unsafe, or like maybe it's not going to be confidential. Some of the things that we spoke about in the beginning. They might be resisting the relationship as well as resisting the transformation. Now, if someone's resisting the relationship, again, it doesn't mean that you're the wrong coach. It means you have to take the time to go back and build that foundation of rapport and trust and confidentiality, so that then you can talk about the resistance to the result. And so it goes in stages. You need to have the relationship. Then you have to have that willingness to go through the transformation. And sometimes that's where the coaching begins. And then you go through the process of actually transforming with clients. So for the most part, if someone seems uncoachable, assume that there is a level of relationship that can be built, and 99% of the time you will be the coach that gets through to someone if you're willing to take the time to be with them in that process and build rapport. And then when someone seems uncoachable, you can also assume that the client is perhaps resisting the transformation. They might be scared, or they might be overwhelmed, or they might be burnt out, in which case you give them the space and the pace and the honesty and the reflection and the container to actually go through what they're going through, to take tiny actions to get the results. If you are a client who feels like you're the worst client ever, please know that just the fact that you're asking that question means you are totally coachable. It means you want it. It means you're excited for it. It means there's something that you can see on the other side of this resistance and you really want to get there, but you're probably resisting the process, in which case you're in the right place. So please be really kind to yourself. When the coach tells you you're not uncoachable, when your coach tells you trust your pace, when your coach tells you it's okay to be where you are, let's take some tiny actions, trust them, because they are there for you, to hold space for you, to help you actually get through this resistance to the transformation. And that just takes time, and it takes as long as it takes, as long as you're looking for what might be the reason I'm resisting it underneath. So I hope this has been really helpful, my friends. Coaching dynamics is something that I'm so passionate about, because I think that sometimes we can be a little bit black and white with whether something is working or not working. And a simple couple of reframes and a simple backtracking to re-establish the foundations can mean the entire relationship continues and transforms. And it's really important for coach and client to have those relationships. So I'd love to know, have you ever been the client who's like, I'm the worst client ever, I'm pretty sure? Are you a coach who has ever assumed that your client was uncoachable, but you didn't quite know that they might have just been burnt out or overwhelmed or resisting the relationship a little bit? I would love to know. And if you're interested in a little bit of supervision and working with someone who understands these dynamics, and you're looking for a little bit of support in your own work to do this, then I really want you to come and check out Bloom and the Fierce Salon. These are two masterminds that we have now officially changed to you can join them anytime for 12 months at a time. They're ongoing coaching with me. I'm really excited about this. Bloom is for you if you are building to your first $5,000 to $10,000 a month as a coach or as a service provider. And the Fierce Salon is if you are consistently making over $10,000 a month and you're ready to go from good to great, scale it all the way up, then come and have a chat with me. And these dynamics apply at every single level, and I'd love to support you. Other than that, thank you for being here. I really hope this episode has helped you today. I would love to hear from you if it has supported you in some way. I always love to hear your feedback and your questions. And have a great day. I'll see you in our next episode. Remember, everything you want is closer than you think. So stay curious, stay open. See you soon.